There's a lot of controversy involving Snoop's gospel album. If Snoop came in and totally converted to the gospel of Jesus Christ, openly professed that Christ is his Savior, this Chronicle would have never existed. But the signs and occult symbolisms that surround Snoop shows that he's not in it to win souls. He's not in it to win souls to Christ. But there's an agenda behind what he's doing. And if you are ignorant towards these symbolisms, these occult symbolisms, then you will be sheeple and will fall into the pits of Satan. Matter of fact, the Illuminati, who call themselves the illuminated ones, see you all as sheeple who needs to be controlled and depopulated. Welcome to Snoop Dogg sitting into the church to cause division. Chronicles. Welcome back to the Pastor's Chronicles. This is your host, Scott Hinton, pastor of AMC Ministries, and also we are here again with part 3 of Snoop Dogg sitting to the church by the Illuminati to cause division. In our last Chronicles, we basically broke down a lot of symbolisms that surrounds this brother, and indicating that this brother is not in it to be saved or quote unquote did it for his grandmother. This brother is bringing Luciferian into the church. So if you haven't seen part 1 and 2, stop this and go back and look at 1 and 2. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to start this Chronicles off like this. Just to give you a insight on duality, if you look at his garment there, his robe, you see the upside down triangle, okay? And on the trimming of that triangle is black and white, which represents duality. Now remember, you see what they want you to see. And what they want you to see, they want it to go into your subconscious. So then momentarily you will accept this Luciferianism. So watch this. We about to get into this, and I want you to truly understand the concept of duality. And they believe that you can't have good without evil, or you can't have evil without good. Both of them are the same. Both of them thrive off of each other. That's what the Freemasons believe.
Hey guys, it's the Vilest Most Excellent here, and thank you for checking out my video. I'm going to be talking about dualism and how it's really the religion of the elite, the Illuminists, the so-called Illuminati, and the various organizations that might fall under that umbrella term, like the Freemasons, Knights Templar, Skull and Bones, Gnostics, which, the Freemasons are just Gnostics, they just go by another name now. Satanists, which, the Satanists, they have their Baphomet symbolism, which Baphomet is the very epitome of dualism. He represents about every dualistic aspect that you can think of. And there's a little bit of this in the New Age movement, and obviously in Wicca with its god and goddess worship. And this stuff is found all over the place in all kinds of worldviews, like Taoism and just Chinese philosophy in general with the yin and the yang. That's dualism. But really one of the main focuses of this video will be me trying to show this elitist group, these Illuminati, how they put their religious beliefs directly into pop culture through movies, video games, and things like that. And, I want to explain a little bit what their belief system is so that you can recognize it and see it for what it is, because it's a religion. It's their belief system. And just like any other religion or belief system, it can be evaluated and critiqued. And the reason no one's done that so far is because it's esoteric. It's hidden knowledge. They keep it secret for just this reason, to avoid it being utterly refuted. Because when someone takes their crazy religious beliefs, like Mormons or Jehovah's Witnesses, and they take them out into the public, what happens? Over a period of time, people just come along, that have their own belief system, and they look at that, and they say, well, this part of it is just irrational, doesn't make sense. And the same thing can be done with the Illuminati and their religious belief. So the first thing I'm going to do is explain what they believe, but also keep in mind, they don't just put it out there like it's just something you can watch and be like, well, there it is, that's what they believe. It's always secretive, hidden, esoteric, the way that they do things. It's, it's sneaky even. And like I was saying, there's a few reasons for why they do that. One is so that no one can critique what they're saying. And then even when you do critique it, people think you're a madman because you're seeing these things in movies or whatever content they're putting it in. And another reason for keeping it hidden and secret is their ego. They think that they're special, they're the illuminated ones, the enlightened ones. Even while I'm recording this, I'm using quotation fingers. But they take great pride in the fact that they have this special knowledge. And for people outside, it makes it more appealing, actually, when it's this mystery and this secret that you get to know. And it almost overrides the fact that it's utter nonsense, that everything that they're saying is completely irrational. It overrides that, the fact that it's this hidden secret that you get to know. And so let me show you what they believe, and then after that I'll critique it like it should have been a million times by now. But let me define dualism really quick. In the way that they believe it, it means the equality of opposites. And not only that, it also means that the existence of one thing hinges upon the existence of its opposite. So it's almost like the two opposites are one whole. You can't have one without the other. Like you'll always hear them saying things like, you can't have good without evil, or you can't have light without dark. And so like the yin and the yang would be a perfect representation of that. You have these two opposites that form one whole, and that's how they view reality. That reality is made up of opposites, and that these opposites form our reality, and that if you took one of the opposites away, you wouldn't be able to have the other one. But most people who get into studying this kind of topic with the whole Illuminati and the many facets of that have already noticed these dualistic portrayals in the content that they're making. And I would say it goes beyond that. It's not just about the traditional dualism that most people are thinking about. It's not just about equality of opposites. It's not just about opposites balancing one another out. No, it goes beyond that. So what they believe is kind of like the Hegelian dialectic. So in the Hegelian dialectic, you have the thesis, and then you have its antithesis. So you have something, and then its opposite, essentially. But then in the Hegelian dialectic, it doesn't stop there. Those don't just sit there opposed to each other. In the Hegelian dialectic, you merge the two, the thesis and the antithesis, and you achieve synthesis from that. It's like you take the two opposites, you combine them and merge them into one. And don't get me wrong here, this isn't like the yin-yang, where you have, the white side and the black side, and there's a little bit of the yin in the yang, there's a little bit of yang in the yin. No, what they're talking about is actually commingling all of it. They would take the white side and the black side and just completely amalgamate all of it into one, so that you would almost have like a gray circle, and that's all that would be left. They're not talking about the balancing of opposites. They're talking about taking opposites and making them into one new whole. So that's the difference between your traditional dualism and what they're teaching. And they call this the Great Work. Aleister Crowley taught this, and people that influenced him and all kinds of people in the occult have been teaching this for a long time. That essentially, and here's the big kicker, the thing that they won't tell you, they believe that when you finish this great work, and what the great work is combining and merging, synthesizing all opposites into one whole. And they believe that when you complete this great work, that you'll achieve apotheosis, that man will become God. And even that in and of itself is the same dualism that we were just talking about. God and man are complete opposites, and that's what they're trying to achieve with the great work. They're trying to merge the two and make them one. But the crazy thing is how they actually plan to accomplish all this. And you have to view it through the eyes of Gnosticism, because like I said, they're Gnostics. And what Gnostics believe is the physical realm is actually just a construct. It's not the real realm. There's actually a realm above it filled with gods and goddesses. And the lowest of all the gods and goddesses, Sophia, created the demiurge. And demiurge means the creator. The demiurge is the one who created this construct, the physical realm. And they would say that he is the God of the Old Testament. And they would say also that he's a deceiver. He's trying to deceive mankind into believing that he's the only God. And actually, the Gnostics would say there are many gods and goddesses above him. And actually, there's another realm beyond the pleroma, where the source God, I wouldn't even call him God because he's not a person, he's actually just a force. And essentially everything comes out from him. All those gods and goddesses down the line come from him. What they believe about the demiurge, though, is that he's dualistic in and of himself. He's composed of opposites. He's chaos and order. He's both evil and good. And so they'll view this one whole demiurge as if he consists of these two opposing forces, and the one side would be evil and order, which order to them is kind of a negative thing, and they view it as kind of a breach of nature, of the natural way of things. And then you have the good and chaotic side, and the evil and orderly side would be represented by Yahweh, the God of the Old Testament, who they more often refer to as Adonai, which Adonai is a Hebrew word that you're going to find over and over again in the Old Testament. It's the word Lord. It's the capital L, lowercase O-R-D, the all uppercase Lord, that would be Yahweh. And then they would see the personification of good and chaos as being, oddly enough, Lucifer. And, this all goes back to that Lucifer mythos I was talking about in my Owl and Baphomet video, where the serpent is the hero in Gnosticism. He comes and he rescues mankind. He sets them free from their enslavement to Adonai. And I know some of you are probably thinking, like, how could anybody believe that? It's practically Satanism. And so I want to show some quotes from some high-level Freemasons who are very respected in Freemasonry. A lot of times people will disavow Albert Pike, though, because his writings are so clear and right to the point that, they basically have to disavow him or else they look like Satanists. So don't be swayed by people who tell you that Albert Pike doesn't represent what Freemasonry teaches and all that stuff, because half the time the people who tell you that, they may be Freemasons, but they're probably very low-level Freemasons, and they haven't been initiated into the kind of things that Pike and other high-level Freemasons, 33rd degree Freemasons, had knowledge of. I'll link a video in the description that pretty much destroys that. But this is what he says. Yes, Lucifer is God, and unfortunately, Adonai is also God, for the eternal law is that there is no light without shade, no beauty without ugliness, no white without black, for the absolute can only exist as two gods. And so you can see that just stinks of that dualism that I was talking about before. And there you have Adonai and Lucifer as the two gods. And then he continues on at the bottom. The true and pure philosophical religion is the belief in Lucifer, the equal of Adonai. But Lucifer, God of light and God of good, is struggling for humanity against Adonai, the God of darkness and evil. And there you have Albert Pike pretty much preaching that Lucifer is the savior of mankind, that he's the one that's trying to set them free from the evil Adonai, the God of the Old Testament. But just to show that this isn't some special doctrine only taught by crazy Albert Pike, here's another quote from a 33rd degree Freemason. His name is Domincio Margiotta. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. He says that Palladiism, which Palladiism would come from the Greek word Palos, which that's a Greek goddess of wisdom. She's basically synonymous with Minerva and Athena. And, that connects back to my Owl and Baphomet video having to do with the Lucifer mythos and the whole flame of wisdom, and that's why they're calling themselves the Illuminati. They're illuminated, enlightened by wisdom that's from Lucifer. But he says Palladianism is necessarily a Luciferian rite. Its religion is Manichaean neo-Gnosticism, teaching that the divinity is dual and that Lucifer is equal of Adonai, with Lucifer, the god of light and goodness, struggling for humanity against Adonai, the god of darkness and evil. And so you see it's the same exact thing that Albert Pike was saying, but here even it goes a little bit farther. It's saying that it's dual, that they're one whole. They're not just these two separate gods. It's that they're one whole god together. They're dualistic. And that's one of the reasons they are trying to accomplish the great work. And like I said, the great work is synthesizing all opposites. And the reason they want to do that is because the demiurge's creation reflects him. It reflects his duality. So that this physical realm that we live in, the construct that he created, it essentially is made up of many, many, many dualistic elements. And you have the mind and the body, you have the male and the female, you have light and dark, fire and water. Many opposing forces is what makes up his domain. And they think that if they collapse all these dualistic elements, if they synthesize them and merge them all together into one, that eventually it'll collapse his realm. And not only his realm, it'll collapse him in on himself, and he will cease to exist. And that will open the gate, the door, the portal to the higher realm where the pleroma is, and that's all the aeons, the gods and goddesses that come out from the source, who the Gnostics would call the Father, or the pneuma, which means spirit in Greek. And essentially, when they achieve synthesis of all things in this realm, then it will collapse in on itself. It will destroy the demiurge, and it will free mankind from this prison that he has ensnared them in. And then they will ascend into the higher realm and merge with the pleroma. They will become aeons, gods and goddesses. And essentially, when Lucifer in the garden told them, "Ye shall be as gods," that's what they think he meant. When they say they're illuminated ones, that's what they're referring to. They have that knowledge, and this all comes from Sophia, which Sophia means wisdom, and she is essentially behind Lucifer in the garden saying that, and she sent Jesus with this gnosis to help us to escape the snare of the demiurge. And you would think that that's kind of odd that the demiurge would be in on destroying himself, but you have to remember that Lucifer is the chaotic side of the demiurge. He actually takes joy in destruction, in undoing things, in rebellion, and so he's actually rebelling against himself. And you also have to remember that Lucifer is the good part of the demiurge, so he sympathizes with the humans because he realizes that their enslavement to the demiurge is wrong, and so he actually wants to free them. And again, just to show you that I'm not making this stuff up as I go, I'm going to quote to you from a Gnostic text that was found at Nag Hammadi, and it's called On the Origin of the World, so you can go look it up for yourself. But it says this in there: "She," and that would refer to Sophia, "will cast them down into the abyss. They," and here they refers to the archons, which are kind of like the demiurge's henchmen that he created for himself. So they will be obliterated because of their wickedness, for they will come to be like volcanoes and consume one another until they perish at the hand of the prime parent. Prime parent there refers to the demiurge who created them. But then it says, when he has destroyed them, he will turn against himself and destroy himself until he ceases to exist. And so you can see that this ancient Gnostic text is actually teaching the exact same thing I was saying, that the demiurge actually destroys himself in the end. But I'm sure some of you are sitting there by now and thinking, this is absolutely insane. And I would agree with that diagnosis 110%, because it is insane. But I'm sure also some of you are a bit confused because this whole topic is pretty mind-numbing with the pneuma and the pleroma and Sophia, the demiurge. All these things may be new to some of you, and so I will leave a link in the description below to a video where Dr. Michael Heiser does like an 8-hour seminar on Gnosticism, and he explains all those things that I was talking about, the demiurge and the pleroma and the source, the Father, pneuma, spirit thing, lots of other stuff. And know I said it's 8 hours, but in the introduction, he goes over those things pretty quickly. And so the link will just be in the description. But now I want to jump into the section where I actually show you, by looking at the content that they actually create, like movies and TV shows and video games, that these are the things that they believe. Because it's a lot easier to simply say that they believe these crazy things than actually show it. So I actually want to take a look at all these things that they're producing so that you can see they're putting these ideas into their content. And the reason that they are doing that is because they want to slowly indoctrinate more and more people. It's like when you tell a fictional story and it's nonsensical, at first people reject it offhandedly. But the more you tell it and the more you put it in front of them, especially in this way, like subconsciously, they're speaking and teaching you on a subconscious level that these things are not absurd, that it's not crazy to think this, and that's how they get you. They keep showing it to you over and over and over and over again, until finally, because you've seen it so many times, it starts to seem plausible, like that actually could be the way it is. That could be the truth. But in reality, it's just that same absurdity from before. It's just now been wrapped in something appealing, and that is your favorite movie, or your favorite game, or your favorite book, or your favorite TV show. So that essentially what they've done is they've sugarcoated this lie, this absurdity, that if you would have heard it on its own, you would have rejected it wholeheartedly. But now they bring it to you wrapped in bows, and you swallow the whole thing, sugar-coatedness and the poisonous center, the lie, the absurdity that you would have never accepted on its own. So to begin, just let me list